1. So the place I work now repairs mostly phones, but we also do a bit of everything. Enter the customer, who is the literal definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. I'll call him Picnic. So Picnic comes in on a busy morning about 2 weeks ago when I'm working on checking people in. Anyway, he explains he is getting pop-ups and adware on his phone, which in my opinion takes skill. It's not a particularly useful skill, but it is a talent and mildly impressive. I'm new. I will officially have worked here for a month on this upcoming Monday, so I forget to get the unlock passcode, and this particular type of phone doesn't prompt me for that in the check-in process. Anyway, I tell him it will be a couple hours, and we will call back when we have news and a quote. 2 things to know about Nick. He likes to talk. Because I am female, I believe he was more polite, and because it was at the beginning of this saga, he actually lets me get in the words I need to understand what the problem is and check him in. 2, he's an older gentleman who very much gives off the I don't like change vibe. At this point, none of us know what a saga this will be. Unfortunately, it turns out we need to factory reset his phone, but if we get his passcode, we may be able to help transfer his data first. Picnic refuses to give us the passcode and comes in to pick it up. We cannot do anything. Usually, after some patient explaining, most folk understand and either leave to go get a new phone, take it to get the data and bring it back to reset, or just leave empty-handed. Not this guy. Over the next day or so, Picnic calls. The company that makes his phone, his carrier, I think the store that rhymes with West Guy or something like that. I was off for those 2 days, and basically shouts and is belligerent, unfriendly, pushy, delight to all 3. The big box store actually resets and then restores the phone, but whatever caused the adware to appear in the first place is reinstalled, so same issue. Nick calls again the next day. I am in, and my boss, very patiently, explains that the phone needs to be factory reset, and cannot have all the apps restored for the above-mentioned reason. Rinse and repeat the above for the next week and a half, with varying reiterations of you need to factory reset it. Different co-workers either saying they will stay late or come in on their days off to help him reset it, and others listening to at least half-an-hour tirades about the issues and what to do. I think a couple of the calls were like 2 hours of this guy rambling. Basically, we were pretty much done with Nick because he will not do what we told him to do, and we are done with him at all 3 area locations. But wonder of all wonders, he actually brought it in Thursday evening to one of the other locations to get it factory reset. Normally, this is where the story would end. That other local location even blacklisted him after they reset it, but oh no. Between the saga of the phone in which he continues to ask what to do, gets the same answer and not do it, he had changed carriers, which now results in his phone no longer connecting to the network. It sometimes happens that way, and there's legit nothing anyone can do, particularly with the carrier he switched to. I am too new to know this particular carrier is special, but it's something I've been warned about. So cue this gem of a conversation I overheard today while I was in the back repairing a screen under the watchful eye of the aforementioned boss. Still learning, so he answers questions and gives me help and tips as I work on said phone. Thank you for calling the store. What can I help you with today?
Hi, I'm calling because my phone no longer wants to connect to the network, and your other location must be very busy because I can't get a hold of anyone there.
Blacklisting means he can still call and leave messages, but it doesn't ring in this case.
Ah yes, I think I recognize your voice. Unfortunately, if the factory reset doesn't fix that issue like you did yesterday, there's nothing we can do. But I like this phone. It's been a good phone up until the ads started popping up. It works well for me, and they went away last night, but now it won't connect to the network. Can't you fix it?
Boss places him on speaker so he can help me with something as he chats to Nick.
I understand, but as I said before, there is nothing we can do. You need to get a new phone through your new carrier.
And rinse repeat for about 5 to 10 minutes, in which Nick basically says the exact same thing in different phrasing. Meanwhile, all of us are attempting not to laugh because, ye gods, he keeps going on, and we've been dealing with him for 2 weeks now. Eventually, the boss gets done and falls completely silent. And eventually, the guy says, "Okay, bye," and hangs up. Picnic would have continued forever if he hadn't done that. You everyone laughing at his ridiculous mannerisms, and praising the boss's clever way of hanging up and dropping the call. And we still aren't done, for my boss's manager of the 3 local stores, including our own, calls shortly after and instructs my boss to blacklist him at this store, also to let my boss vent. Picnic actually makes an appointment for later on. We obviously decline it. Those messages he kept leaving at the first store that blacklisted Nick, those are, for all we know, in Morse code. I think we got busy and had to stop trying to translate before we could plug it into something to figure out what the knocks meant. So yeah, this is where the saga ends for now. 2. I work as a student at a university, where I attend the 3rd and last year of computing engineering. I work as a helper in the 2nd and networking class, helping students to follow labs and set up services. The students throughout the semester are to complete a set of labs that prepare them for 2 projects. One small project to prepare them for their 2nd, and more extensive project, which is their exam. The lab consists of a walkthrough part first, making the students set up the given service that the lab entails, followed up by questions. These questions would be anything from describe how this works, to change a configuration of what you have just set up to achieve this result. As the labs get more advanced, one could still follow them to a T, to complete the initial setup. But the questions would eventually get more to the point of having to Google how to do certain things. As these are 2nd-year students, one would expect at least a rather basic IT comprehension at this point, and they would be familiar with the basic Linux commands and terminal usage. Some students in their year obviously aren't where their progression in their degree suggests. I have been a helper in other and previous classes too, like Intro to Linux and Object-Oriented Programming, so I know to a certain degree which are the stronger and weaker students of the bunch. On the lesser end of the bunch are a few that stand out a bit, like this one. The lab environment is in CentOS 7, which uses systemd, so the accompanying commands are used. The student had a habit of sitting at the lab computer and waiting until I made eye contact, where they would then raise their hand to ask a question. They would only use a command once and then figure they are either stuck or progress the lab not caring about the fact that this service isn't running, and then getting more stuck later. Meanwhile, sitting and staring at the screen, they would not make any effort to read the lab instructions again or Google the errors that might be appearing. I would always find this a bit fascinating, as the first interaction between us, every single time I got up to the student, would be something along the lines of, "What seems to be the problem?" As I look at the terminal window to see if I can immediately identify the problem, "Well, I changed this in the config file, and tried to restart command and it won't start." Point to the lab instructions where one could input exactly what it says into the config file and the service would work. "Okay, have you looked at the status?" which it says right there. I point to the terminal output telling the user what troubleshooting steps they could do on their own. This is where the now famous among the student assistants buffer comes along. Anytime me or the other helper would get to this stage of the conversation, it would be like watching literal gears grinding in their head, and they were trying to kickstart their thought process to figure out what to do next. The answer would always be, "No, I haven't looked at that," or "No, I haven't Googled that." "No, I haven't tried to follow the lab's instruction again." But before every single one of these types of responses, I would, in awe, watch as this person spent a total of 5 to 10 seconds in complete silence, trying to figure out what to do with the words that just came hurtling in their direction. Oftentimes, the questions the student had would be of the kind that could be solved by going back into the config file and double-checking syntax, or seeing what systemd would output to logs, but time and time again, student would insist on sitting in silence until making eye contact, for me to then have to watch as my request for a command or Google search churned away in their head. and them figuring out or being told their simple mistake. Yet every single time a student got stuck, I would have to walk over to them, ask if they googled it or ran the command that is currently being displayed in their terminal, only to watch them sit for an eventual alarming amount of time in silence, processing what I had just said. It could be something as simple as, "Now please write journalctl-xn, and let's see what the output is." Proceeds to wait 5 seconds for them to process. "What command do you mean?" "The one that's being displayed right there that we have used before to check what's wrong." Getting a bit frustrated at this point, as we're several labs in, and has used the command multiple times before, even a couple today already. The student waits for another 5 to 10 seconds and then proceeds to type in the command. "Okay, we can see there's an error in that file, so could you please cat that for me?" Another 5 to 10 seconds. "What do you mean cat? What file?" The cat command we have used several times before to check the contents of the specific file. I'm talking about the file being marked as having errors in the logs we are currently looking at. Point to the file being marked with errors. Well, you know the drill at this point. Time passes, they write the command, see the content of the file, at which point I would either point out a syntax error or I would let them figure it out on their own, and come back later when they inevitably haven't done anything to figure out their own mistake. This would be, and currently still is with their projects being worked on, be a recurring segment of my day. This has, of course, only gotten worse as the projects didn't have any instructions, only a requirement for what needs to be set up. But it is completely based on everything the students should have learned in their labs already. Technically, one that would follow the walkthrough of each lab, replacing the contents of the config files with the requirements of the projects, and be all set up, but this is not something that is easily understood by the student. At times I have theorized that the student is actually a humanoid android that is built to learn about technology like a human, only the processing unit the creators used is vastly underperforming for the use case. Whenever I help students still to this day, I can't help but being a bit fascinated and also get my tinfoil hat out. 3. For reference, I've worked for an MSP for 4 years on the network engineering side of the house. Just recently, I was tasked with testing out Duo for our customers because a lot of cybersecurity insurance required 2FA on Windows devices and everything else. And because of the price, my company didn't want to adopt Duo sooner. Now, a couple days ago, we got our Duo account bumped up to an MSP partner account, and we decided to go forward with offering it to our clients. This meant that I needed to create admin accounts for more people in the organization, such as our partner relations lady, who I guess must be the most technically inclined person in the organization, even though she can't figure out how to ring my extension on the company phone. Because the second I did that, she took away all admin rights and made every admin account except hers a help desk account. If you've ever worked with Duo before, let me shed some light on their permissions quick. Your highest 2 levels are owner and administrator. Owner is completely unrestricted, they can do everything. So naturally, you'd only want a couple accounts at this level. In my head, that would be me, and one would be the other person who has done any sort of Duo training. The next level, administrator, has similar permissions to owner, except for 2 big caveats that they can't create or change other admin account permissions, and they can't view or edit billing information. It's important to note that in Duo's terms, admin refers to anyone with an account that has access to the organization's admin panel, and administrator refers to the permission level that I just described. So, for some godforsaken reason, the operations person I referred to earlier is the person in the company that's in charge of creating people's accounts and updating billing information. But if you couldn't tell my sarcasm earlier, she has no actual technical skills, so of course, I don't actually want to give her owner rights. But Duo has no way that I've found in the time that I had to give admins custom rights, such as give this admin administrator right and billing rights, or give this admin user rights and application rights. You can only select one. So this leads to the most annoying part of the story. I had to create the operations lady's account as an owner, so she could do her job even though she shouldn't be in charge of creating admins, since she doesn't have any Duo training, and doesn't know how to read the summary of what each permission level does. The first thing she does, as mentioned earlier, is make every account a help desk account without calling me, the person who knows what's up with Duo. Then she doesn't send anything out to notify me or the other guy of the permission change. So here I am going to create a setup document for Duo, and I find out that I can't create test users. I can't give any more people panel access. I can't even set up a new Duo application to be protected. I email her to find out if she changed my permissions, to which she says, "Yes, I did. Call me. For some reason your extension doesn't ring." No one else in the company, i.e. 4 to 5 other people, has ever had issues calling my extension, which leads back to the technical level of this operations employee. So I call her, sent to voicemail. Call her a couple hours later, sent to voicemail. So here's where we're at. I am supposed to give a presentation on how Duo works today, but since I don't have any rights, I'm just going to tell the CEO that until the lady gets over her power trip, we can't implement Duo, which means our customers can't get cybersecurity insurance without finding a new MSP. Moral of this story, my company has a poor way of assigning roles, and Duo has a poor way of assigning permissions. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Update. Probably won't be your favorite update, but here we go. Didn't come up in the meeting. Some other strange things took precedence. I sent a rather harsh, at least for me, email to her, CCing my boss and the CEO. Got nothing all day, until CEO called me toward the end. Got a bit of a scolding for the email, which is fair. Like I said, I was mad. Apparently, this was protocol due to some things that happened prior to my time here. I didn't go through the proper channels when setting up a new partner account, primarily because I wasn't told what they were. I was just following orders. CEO apologized for the lack of communication, which was my whole issue. Like, if you're going to change my permissions, tell me first. Our Duo rollout is on hold, obviously, since I didn't get my permissions back, but oh well. Guess we'll see if we ever get there. As for people talking about how she shouldn't have owner permissions in the first place, I agree. I think that should be saved for service managers and the CEO, but that's how her job is set up. She's the internal point of contact for all our vendors, and in charge of creating external accounts for our people. I don't fully know why, but I imagine it has something to do with accountability. All that said, I do think that Duo's permissions should be checkboxes rather than radio buttons, so that you can make someone both application manager and user manager, or whatever combination you need, rather than giving them administrator rights or requiring multiple accounts. As it stands right now, I can't currently test some of the applications that we're going to want for some of our clients. And while the Duo setup process is fairly straightforward, it's still not something I want to put in production until I test things. There's a small part of me that still hopes her phone breaks over the weekend, so we're locked out of Duo entirely until she gets a new one. 4. The company I work for has a service and lease agreement with the company I physically work at. Every 3 to 4 years, the laptops and desktops get replaced with newer equipment when the lease is up, and our group usually has to track them down if they aren't in their assigned locations. Usually policy is that if laptops are left on desks, they need to be secured via a cable lock to the desk. But desktops being more bulky, this isn't the policy. I get tasked with trying to locate and swap out a device one day, and finally come across it on a desk near, but not exactly where it should be. Unhooking all the peripherals, I notice someone attached a cable lock to the desktop, so I have to contact the on-site security team to unlock the cable lock, which usually isn't an issue, but of course, I was in a hurry this day, so it was a calamity in its own. Security guard arrives 30 minutes after making the request for assistance. Typical.
You call for assistance with the cable lock?
Sure did.
Is this your computer?
It's my company's, yes. I just need to swap it out with this other one I have here.
Who sits at this desk?
Pointing to an empty desk with a PC on it. I'm not sure. I just know this device is past due to be replaced, and that's why I'm here.
Well, I need permission of the person that sits here for you to take the machine.
It doesn't belong to whoever sits here. This device belongs to my company. I show him the work order with the computer ID of the one that's on the desk, and the one I'm trying to swap it out with. I just need you to unlock the cable so I can put this one here, and then I'll secure the new one if that really makes a difference, though it shouldn't have been locked in the first place.
Well, all the devices should be secured to the desks.
That's never been the policy for desktops, but I just need this unlocked.
I'm gonna need a manager of this area to approve this device is okay to take.
I don't know where any managers are for this area. I don't work for this company, I work for the other company, and have other things I need to get done today as well. The security guard walks off to find the company manager. The manager and guard return.
What's going on now?
I work for the other company. I point to my security badge with the other company name. I need to swap this machine out. It's past its replacement date. I show the paperwork again.
I need to know who sits at this desk to make sure this guy can take the machine.
This is the first shift worker desk, and he's not here now, but what do you need them for? This guy has the paperwork for the exchange.
Okay, I didn't want to get in trouble, handing the device over to the wrong person.
The guard looks at the key ring.
Oh, I don't have the right key to unlock that cable lock. I have to call my supervisor to bring the other set of keys.
15 minutes later, the supervisor shows up with the keys and unlocks the device. A simple 15 to 20 minute task is now taking over an hour and a half because of stupidity. And the security guard mentioned that he was retired law enforcement for the state at some point during this, which just makes it even more aggravating. Just to clarify a few points. The site I work on is a secure site. You can't just walk onto the campus. You either have to go through one of those overlapping metal turnstiles with an RFID or drive onto the campus through guarded gates that require you to scan your badge and be verified by a member of security. I'm not saying it is impossible to steal anything from the site, but the lengths an agent would have to go through to counterfeit the credentials isn't worth the random employee's computer, which all the files are on shared network locations. There are multiple buildings and hundreds, if not thousands, of employees, most of which don't have offices. In order to get a member of security to show up to a location, you have to call a dispatch line, provide credentials, and the location security is to meet you at, as well as verify your information when the security guard shows up with a picture badge with the site's logo and your vendor information visible. 5. This post discusses in high-level detail an attack on our network. I was not the one to launch the attack. I was one of the defenders. Within the government organization, I led the internal IT security team, spearheading organization-wide changes to our security stance. Aside from the changes I was leading, we also had a contracted MSSP team that monitored the network 24/7. The escalation point for serious or critical incidents was me. Barring me, it fell to the senior sysadmins in order of seniority. For the previous couple of weeks, we'd seen a few other city governments be targeted by state-sponsored attackers based out of Russia. We were briefed by higher levels of government. We constantly hammered at users for their training, and we weren't afraid to disable accounts until they completed it. But users will always remain one of the weakest links in security. Internally, we had a sit-down conversation about the what-ifs. What if we are targeted? What if our MSSP catches it late? What if... whatever. We had a conversation within our MSSP and re-highlighted escalation procedures. 1. Call me. 2. Failing that, call sysadmins. 3. Failing that, call management. 4. Failing that, call dispatch. And explain who you are, why you're calling, what you need, and how quickly dispatch will handle the rest. All was well and good. We went back to the grind of stripping old hardware, OSs, guest and hypervisors, software, networking gear. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach, though. I knew something was coming. I had a good idea what it was. I didn't know when it would be. Now our network, previously being old and mostly insecure, had come a long way. Most of our servers were on board for long-term monitoring, and had a modern EDR solution.
More accurately, all of our servers had been replaced by modern systems except one. One night, at 3 a.m., I get a phone call. It was from our MSSP. "Good evening, it's Tier 1 from MSSP calling." I don't think good evening is a good use of words if you're calling at 3 a.m. I can appreciate the sentiment, though. What happened? "There are currently 6 accounts in your network actively attacking hundreds of your servers from," and they gave me the IP range. "Initial indication is they just gained access about 10 minutes ago. That IP range belongs to our full tunnel SSL VPN, which is geo-restricted to our country. Where are these guys logging in from?" Unfortunately, at the time, MFA wasn't being enforced at the VPN. Management was looking to spare a buck, rest assured. Multiple senior sysadmins threw books at them later. "Major city in the country." "We don't have anyone there right now. Send me an email ASP with their usernames. I'll disable the add user objects and kick the VPN sessions. Please run a search of the last 14 days for any VPN session that authenticated regardless of location. Group by the columns of username, source IP, and geographic location. Also, you mentioned exploits. Is this attacker throwing shit at the wall and hoping something sticks? Run a second search, please, of our firewall. Last 14 days, any UTM event that wasn't dropped or blocked. Export in source IP port, dest IP port, username, UTM action, and the UTM event itself. We'll export that information and have it over to you in the next 5 minutes. Anything else? Check the AV and EDR logs. There are plenty of shells that would make it through the UTM checks at the firewall that may be caught based on behavior. If they attack FSO1, they're going to find something. Well, just come in. Interpreter shell on FSO1 to CPIP, caught by non-EDR software. It was the last machine on a legacy AV. FSO1 equals file server 1. Not its real name, nor was it exclusively a file server. The one server you cannot touch from your console. Please call Senior Sysadmin 1. If you can't get a hold of him, try 2 and 3. If you can't get a hold of either, call me. Don't call the listed management, they're out of the country at the moment on vacation. Noted, thanks. So I got logged into AD and kicked the 6 users off, reset their passwords, etc. I also brought down the VIP interface entirely. I set my focus on the server and had a shell, dedicated, prevented, on it. Now, this server was ancient. Ancient usually means ancient. It would be legal age 18+ today if it were still running. If you hadn't figured it out yet, a physical box running Windows Storage Server 2003. It was a huge liability, but anytime someone, regardless of seniority, even thought about taking a table saw to it, they'd get told off. Now, being familiar with how pentests work, I knew they'd probably already dumped SAM and LSASS, making this a huge problem. Just as I cut the server off, that would have normally gotten someone fired. I got a call back from the MSSP. We weren't able to reach any of the senior sysadmin team. Forget the admin team, I'll handle it. FSO1 is online. Run a third search. All admin authentication activity from the last 24 hours. If these guys had any brains, they dumped the SAM database and the LSAS processes to get credentials. I'll send it over shortly. Just a heads up, we have a couple senior security analysts online. They're poring over all your logs to find any other movement. They don't appear to have run any ad enumeration tools. Awesome. Who are the seniors on your side right now? I'll coordinate how we handle FSO1's recovery with them. Senior Analyst 1, 2, and 3. Noted. I need to make some phone calls to dispatch. Time to get chewed out, and we'll take the seniors up on our side. So I call dispatch. At dispatch, they have special procedures for special requests, like critical IT staff getting police escorts back to ITHQ. Dispatch 911, where's your emergency? AV 636 calling, priority. I need police dispatch to Senior Sysadmin 1, 2, and 3's houses immediately. Escort them to IT without delay. Unresponsive to phone calls, 6 user accounts compromised. With 1 critical server online. Attackers are suspected to be the same group that hit nearby cities. Police will be dispatched. Was the critical asset FSO1? Yes, trust me when I say the alternative was much worse. We need that server now. Staff are already complaining. I understand what it's used for, but forget it. If I release the server back to its normal operations, I could very possibly cause the release of a threat internally. We will release it if and only if we can reasonably claim it's safe. Fine, the police will arrive in a minute or two. You will get a call from IT staff once they're awake and in the patrol vehicles. Rest assured, they will not be pleased that FSO1 is offline.
You're absolutely right. They won't be pleased about it, but they will definitely understand. Thank you for your assistance.
Keep us informed.
A couple minutes later, my phone rings. It's Senior Sysadmin 1.
Hey, what's going on?
Our Russian friends broke the front door down, 6 accounts compromised through the full tunnel VPN. I took the VPN interface offline on the firewalls. FSO1 is offline following the detection of the interpreter shells.
Fuck, dispatch is gonna be pissed. Have they gotten anything yet?
No ransomware yet, knock on wood. But the compromise of FSO1 means that they likely dumped SAM and LSAS at the very least, which means we should at least be resetting all admin passwords, and likely mass resetting all domain passwords in general. FSO1 was a file server, jump box, and used by public safety. It'll be a lot of pissed off users tomorrow, but it's a surefire way of making sure they don't have additional credentials. It's also hard to say how many VPN accounts they have.
Agreed. What about FSO1? Dispatch will want that server online ASAP.
They've been told to pound sand. This is the kick in the nuts that they and management need. Time for FSO1 to go. We got lucky that it was caught early, and someone got to it in time from our side. I'm damn inclined to say we can never fully trust it and transition to something on newer hardware. OS, software, and protected by the EDR.
Playing with fire, I like it. Kick sand, they will. Management is out, and I'm next senior. I'll play dumb and just authorize it in the frenzy.
Senior Sysadmin 2 and Senior Sysadmin 3 will be here shortly. Let's throw up something modern. Server 2019 patch in the EDR. Get the software interfaces for Dispatch Public Safety online by the end of the week. Dispatch can run both manual and new system software over the weekend. We won't have any issues getting SOC to stretch an investigation out for the next few days in the interest of security.
I'll have that conversation with Dispatch. They're gonna lose it when I tell them it's not coming back. Reach out to SOC's seniors, get a list of every possible reason we can viably use to stretch out the downtime of FSO1, just in case management wants to trail. Follow it up with a call to software vendors to get their support.
Sweet. I'll get the password resets underway using scripts, then I'll start calling vendors. So we get the passwords reset for everyone. Yes, we had hundreds of pissed off users the next day. Oh well. SOC gave us a stupid long list of things to check. Naturally, it took days to confirm the server was safe for use, by which time the new server was up and running. Dispatch was furious with us. IT management found out the next day of what happened, along with the fact that FSO1 would be offline for extensive review. A few days later, we told management that FSO1 was being replaced with 2 dedicated servers for dispatch and public safety. Both would be run side by side. 2 ran so that we could take one down for standard maintenance without interrupting the service. The file share side of FSO1 for corporate was replaced by a significantly more modern server with faster and expanded storage. Jumpbox was moved to a dedicated Jumpbox. Sometimes you have to piss off users, or as they're called, customers. On the other hand, proper segregation of corp and public safety. The last of the tied interfaces fell offline with FSO1, kicking in the metaphorical can. VPN and MFA bought and enforced very quickly after that. Also a full audit of VPN permissions. Anything that had not been active in the last month was removed. The purse strings loosened significantly, immediately following the breach. That's interesting. Normally when something is prevented, some asshat in C-level or council determines,
"Oh, they have enough money."
Nightmare. We were probably less than an hour away from losing FSO1, followed by most of our environment, multiple compromised accounts. Greatness. It was the kick in the ass people needed to remove it permanently from service. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Terrific Tales of Technology, Episode 21.
And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you have a story you'd like to send in of any kind, then please do send it along to kingofthecities@gmail.com. Oh, also, before I forget, the whatnots and the things and the do that if you get a chance. There's a button. It's got a thing that points up. I know, apparently it does something. I was up way too early today. I was up at 8 in the morning, which for me is a bad time to be awake at. Much prefer to wake up between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. Night owl, you see. Well, sleep schedule messed up. I'll do my best to nudge it in the right direction. Probably take me a couple of weeks to fix it comfortably, but we'll see. I might just chug some Red Bull and try and do it tonight. At least once work... Although the thing is, once work's done, it gets easier to stay awake. I think we all kind of know that feeling. I mean, as much as some of us might love our jobs, I mean, I love my job. It's not working, you know, relaxy times, you appreciate relaxy times more when work is done. Anyway, with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.